Hi, and welcome to my video on your observation summary papers. So you will complete two observation summary papers for your transfer report. Um, and so let's talk about this and let's talk about the process. So what is your transfer report? Your transfer report is your final project for ECE 410. It is a case study. I just happen to call it a transfer report about your focus child. So you've identified your focus child from your field work. It's a child you have questions about, you find interesting, you want to get to know better, you want to learn more about. So you're going to spend some time observing this child while you're in your field work, taking notes about what the child does, what you see, what you observe this child doing. And all of a sudden, there's a knock on the door when you're in your field work. This is hypothetical. And the administrator, the principal of the program says to you, "Hey, I'm so happy you're here in your fieldwork placement. I know you're doing your focused observations, your ECE 410 fieldwork on fill in the blank child. Remember, this is hypothetical. And at the end of the school year, this child is moving to Oklahoma, Nebraska, California. I hope someplace warm, Florida, California, Texas. I don't know, someplace, preferably someplace warm, especially because now it's cold. Um, excuse me. And so we need to send, the principal administrator continues, we need to send a packet of information to the new school, including a report that talks about who this child is. So could you please conduct some interviews and write a report about who this child is? So you are going to write two observation summary papers. And then you're going to write your transfer report, which is just taking information from your observation summary reports. And then sprinkling what you know on what you've learned from EC 410 about the child so that you can give some information for the teacher, the new staff who will be working with the child at the new school in the new state to help them get to know the child better. Okay, so that's the context for these papers. So I'm going to share my screen to take you to the assignments so that you can see what we have. So both of the observation summaries are pretty much the same. So there we start this, there are the observation summary guidelines. These are the same details that are on the syllabus about the observation summary papers, how they're assessed, and what you should include. The observation summary papers should have four sections. The introduction, basically objective, sequential narrative summaries of observations. Doesn't have to be all from one day, but you should have notes that you've documented of, recorded of the child. And then connections to 410, and we'll talk about that, and a conclusion. So the introduction, you're going to describe the setting, where the observation occurred, the physical space, how the furniture's arranged. Notice you're doing two observation summaries, but this can stay the same. This information can stay the same. Clearly not the day and time, but the space, unless the room changes from one week, and sometimes teachers change the room. How the furniture was arranged, who was present might change. And when I say who was present, like the classroom has 18 children, then, there are, 10 boys, 8 girls, or, this is a day we typically have 18 children, but 6 children were out sick, because there was a stomach virus going around, right? So something like that. If it was an unusual day, then describe the child, their physical appearance. And this you're gonna capture like what I call vignettes, but mini observations, like anecdotals, okay, of what the child is doing. You want to use objective, non-judgmental language to describe the child's actions, interactions, and reactions to their environment. Okay, and that includes people. Include as many and as much detail as possible, um, so that the reader can picture them. Then you're going to use strategies and scaffolds from ECE 210, excuse me, ECE 410, to include in your paper. UDL, learning strategies, language and literacy strategies, socialization strategies, guiding behavior. We're going to get into those in future um, uh, uh, weeks. So we will cover them. MTSS, you can use that. How would you use that with the child? Name the strategy, explain the strategy in your own words, describe how you would use the strategy in the classroom, give specific examples, and why you selected that strategy over other strategies. Okay, and then there's some questions. What did you learn during about the child during the observations, and what struck you while you were observing or writing the paper? So that is an overview of the paper. Then you'll see um, there are materials that can help you, and actually, let me make this bold too. Help you conducting an observation. I know you have completed ECE 308 and 311, so you've taken observation courses, you've done observations for ECE 110. So if you need a refresher on observations, there's a PowerPoint. If using a form to complete your observations, having a formal space to take notes helps. You can print these documents out and use them to take notes on. They're just prompts on the side to sort of guide you to what to think about or look for, the child's actions, what learning materials and furnishings the child engages in, how they use them, the child's movements, and how. But remember, you want everything in chronological sequential order. Okay, the child's vocalization, what the child looks or gazes at, the child's interactions with others, reactions and responses, and just reactions and responses to the environment. So if this form helps you, I, I hope so. Feel free to use it. And then there's some information here under materials for writing your observation summary paper. Of course, I have a chart for writing your observation summary paper. So basically, as I mentioned before, I invite you to divide your paper into vignettes. Okay, so first start with the introduction. Okay, and here's the information that you should include there, the setting, then the vignette, the first vignette, you know, thinking about a situation, the second vignette, the third vignette, the four, you should have four vignettes in your paper. This paper should be about 3 pages. And then the learning strategy. So what are 2 learning strategies you are going to use in your paper? I'm sorry, I have to let my dog out. Um, so go, baby. Okay. This is really in real time. So the learning strategy, explain it in your own words. Um, how you could use this strategy, why this strategy, concluding paragraph and citing sources. And I see I actually need to make a change to this form, so I will, and I will upload it again. And then cite your sources. And then at the very bottom of the paper, there is an example of how to cite sources in APA format. Um, and I use Universal Design for Learning as an example. You should cite the sources when you use them, or when you refer to the concepts in the paper. So this is an example. Notice nowhere in the article do I name the article. I only talk about the authors. That's what we do in APA. And we use the authors and the name of the article. Excuse me, not what did I just say? We use the authors and the date of the article. Page number if it's a quote. If no quote, no page number. But we use the authors and the date of publication. That's it. We never put the name of the article. The name of the article goes in the references, and the references are here. So in addition, just going to close this. I also have sample vignettes. So what does a vignette look like? So you can see the vignettes, you see they're very detailed. There's short periods of time of an observation, but they're very detailed. Okay, so your vignettes should be detailed. So please think about times that you've captured that you have details from your observations, and you should have several vignettes. And then the last thing that I just want to show you is there's also the chart for writing the observation summary that is on Brightspace. And so you can use this, and I will make a change to this as well. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Be well.